Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Darcy, and in today's episode of Science on the Edge, I'm going to be talking about social media. Social media has been in the headlines, well, it's always in the headlines, but it's been in the headlines even more recently due to the revelation that was revealed by Channel 4 News quite recently, relating to the manipulation of and the targeting of specific voters in the Trump election back in 2016. But to be honest, social media has been causing issues in society pretty much since it arose, due to its model. To be honest, social media makes money by harvesting our data and basically selling it to the highest bidder, and then that data will be used to manipulate our behavior, to not just target ads into our Twitter or Facebook feeds, etc., but to actually um, put fake news in our feeds, which can manipulate our behavior in particular ways. And it's not general. It's not that articles are sent to all of us trying to get us to vote one way or another. It's the targeted nature of these ads and this fake news that is a real concern in today's society. Articles can be directed specifically at one group of people on social media. So say young Black American males between the ages of 18 and 25 in the Seattle area. It can be that specific, that specific. And because social media pretty much knows everything about us, due to the posts that we make, what we like, what we share, what we retweet, the social media platforms have got a really detailed profile of us. They know our age, our sex, our race, our sexual orientation, whether we're left wing or right wing, whether we drink or not, whether we smoke or not, whether we're a football supporter or not, etc., etc. Social media companies know all of this about all of us, and that data is very valuable to both advertising companies and to political lobbying groups and organizations. And that information is used to manipulate our behaviors in a way that has never really happened before. You might say that we're always manipulated. Before social media, we had TV, and that was manipulating our behavior. And yes, that's true. But it was way more subtle. It was way more subtle. We were all more or less exposed to the same information. And that information, broadly speaking, was fact checked to some degree. Problem with social media, modern social media companies, is their platforms are kind of like the Wild West. Anything goes. Basically, there are no rules. They don't fact check, not really, not properly, which means people can pretty much get away with saying anything on social media, at least if their profile is big enough. And it's allowed to spread. And this is a problem that I'm going to talk about in today's discussion. So I'm going to talk about social media at some length. So I think I should just get on with it, really. Okay, so let's start by giving you a little quote. This is a quote from Sean Parker, who was actually the founding president of Facebook. So this is a quote from Sean Parker. The thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. We need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you more likes and comments. It's a social validation feedback loop because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. The inventors, creators, me, Mark Zuckerberg, Kevin Systrom on Instagram, all of these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. You see, that is the issue. There is this idea that social media has just got a bit out of control, and that really the intentions of the founders were perfectly honorable. They just wanted a platform that people could use, people could enjoy, and maybe they could make a little bit of money from it, from things like advertising. But it got out of hand. But that isn't what Sean Parker is saying, and it's not what many other ex-executives of the big social media platforms say either. when they put together these platforms, they engineered the algorithms, the programs on these apps so that they would grab your attention as much as possible and keep it for as long as possible. That was the aim. The aim wasn't to provide something innocent. It was to just tie up and eat your attention. And these algorithms, which have become really quite sophisticated now, are very good at doing that. Now, you might think, so what? So what if it grabs my attention? I enjoy my social media. Well, yes, you do. I enjoy my social media too. But the issue is that the sort of thing that does grab your attention on social media isn't the truth. It isn't the truth. This may be misquoted. We're not totally sure whether it's Winston who said this. It's been attributed to other people. But Winston Churchill is thought to have said that the truth has traveled around the world. Sorry, I always get this the wrong way around. I'll say it the other way around. Winston Churchill said, allegedly, that a lie travels around the world before the truth has put its pants on. And that's kind of true, really. That is kind of true. And this is sort of the ethos of social media. You see, the truth is boring. Cold facts are boring. They do not grab your attention on your device. They do not keep your attention on the device. What grabs and keeps your attention is controversy. Radical ideas, things that make you go, I didn't know that. I need to read this. I need to share this. I need to tweet this. This is terrible. This is awful. This is whatever. Things that grab your attention and hold on to it like that. That are the sort of things that social media is now full of, because the truth, it's boring. It's boring. So as a result of this, social media has gradually accumulated fake news, fake stories, which are retweeted, to the point where everyone starts believing them. Good example would be something like, and I'll use this example a couple of times today, the anti-vaxxer movement. When I was a child, everyone vaccinated their children because we all realized that to not do so was irresponsible. Before vaccines, life expectancies were short, people were dying in childhood all over the world. Vaccines came along, life expectancy increased, the number of childhood deaths plummeted until social media came along. When social media came along, however, because there is no platform for every crazy idea, every bit of pseudoscience, and crazy ideas and pseudoscience grab your attention, the anti-vax movement has therefore gained such momentum. It was virtually dead. It didn't really exist before social media. But now it's huge. It's huge. One story talking about some child that has died following a vaccine, or some bit of pseudoscience which has been discredited by all the other scientists saying that vaccines can cause autism. Those sorts of stories grab your attention, and they get shared and tweeted and retweeted and retweeted until they fill social media. You've all seen them. And these stories then start to be believed. If something has got 2 million likes or shares or whatever, people think there's some sort of truth to it. Long story short, less people are taking vaccines now. The anti-vax movement has grown. There was an outbreak of measles for the first time in decades in Washington just the other year. And it's all correlated with social media. And vaccines are just one example of this, and the anti-vaxxer movement. There are many other examples too, and I'm going to get to some of them. Okay, so let's start here with a definition. What is social media? Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. That is what social media is. The types of social media include social networking platforms such as Facebook, etc. Microblogging, that would be things like Twitter. Photo sharing, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, a few others. Video sharing, YouTube, Vimeo, Periscope, TikTok. And various forums such as Reddit, which is pretty much the sewer of social media where all the bad stuff accumulates. In terms of social media demographics, different age groups tend to be attracted to different social media platforms. So people under 18, teenagers, they tend to favor messaging apps, auto-delete apps, anonymous apps, that kind of thing. They tend to like to share pictures with nice little filters or videos, that kind of thing. That tends to be the younger people. But once you move a little older, you get more people on things like Tumblr and Twitter and things like that. Twitter is a bit more popular with older demographics. When you get to much older demographics, and things like Facebook and LinkedIn become more interesting. So there's a sort of age range for different types of social media. Facebook used to be something that the very young were most interested in. But over the last decade, that's kind of changed. And now it's more older people that are into Facebook. And it's more the instant messaging and the image apps and the short video apps that are more popular with younger people. So working at a social media company, and this should tell you a lot about the social media companies. If you're in the UK, you work for a social media company and you're a software engineer, you're basically going to earn about £70,000 per year. I don't know what the current exchange rate is, but that's probably at least $100,000 per year. A software engineer intern, about $3,500 a month. Some sort of executive assistant, maybe $40,000 per year. But who earns the most money? It's the data scientists. The data scientists are on almost £100,000 per year. That's going towards $130,000, $140,000 per year. So a lot of money. Data scientists earn by far the most in the social media companies. And there's a very good reason for that. Very good reason for that. Because it's the data scientists who will harvest information about you. They're the people that will create create algorithms which can harvest your data, find out everything about you, whether you're left wing, right wing, gay, straight, whatever it is, and sell that information. What you need to understand is that to the social media companies, you are not the customers. You and me, we're not the customers. The customers are the marketing companies and the political organizations. We are merely the product that is sold to them. And it didn't really start off this way. I mean, when organizations like Facebook started, they didn't even have ads on their platform. In fact, they said they never would have ads on the platform. But then I remember one day an email was sent out by Facebook to all its users, and it said something along the lines of, "Great news, everyone. Now your favorite businesses are joining you on Facebook." Yes, good news for Facebook's shareholders, because that meant a lot more money was coming their way. And that's innocent enough, to be honest. I mean, we get these apps for free, so the least we can agree to is that they can advertise at us. That's sort of fair enough. Even targeted ads, in a way, is okay. If the social media companies realize you're a fan of Manchester United, then why not use that to try and sell you some season tickets or something? That's almost innocent, and it's a price that I would say is almost worth paying to get these apps for free. And if it had stayed like that, that would be fine, but it didn't stay like that. The algorithms became ever more complex and ever better at grabbing your attention, keeping you on the device, gathering your data, and therefore targeting not just ads at you, but fake news, fake articles to manipulate your behavior. Basically, if I'm a political organization or some sort of campaign group, I can buy a pot of users from someone like Facebook or Twitter or whoever. I can buy a pot of users and I can say, I want this particular article, which looks like a proper news article, to just appear in the feeds of one particular age group. Young, white, female, heterosexual, middle-class women from this state in the US or this region of the UK or wherever. And those articles will appear directly in their feeds. And because I know everything about them, I can word these articles in such a way to press all of the right buttons and get them to vote a particular way in an election or in a referendum or whatever it is. And that's basically what these organizations do, and it's how they make their money. And they say that there's no problem with this. These organizations do not consider themselves to be, media companies. And because they're not media companies, they don't have the responsibilities of media companies. You see, a media company has to do some fact checking. It can't just publish anything. A proper media company in a developed nation needs to do some fact checking. Otherwise, it will be in trouble. But because Facebook is not a media company, it's not obligated to do any fact checking at all. To them, they basically say, we are just a platform. People put their information, their thoughts, their ideas on to their platform. And what's there is not really their responsibility. And as a result of this, they can get away with publishing things which are blatantly untrue. They take some of these things down, but a tiny fraction of what's out there. And the reason for this is they want the stuff to stay up because it attracts users, which gives them money. With things like Twitter, for example, yes, you can get banned if you say something racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever. Your account can get suspended or it can get banned. And a lot of people are thinking, isn't it great these social media companies are finally being responsible? But the thing is, they don't just ban anyone. They tend to ban accounts which don't really have that many followers, aren't so important, and can quite easily disappear without losing any revenue for Facebook or Twitter. I mean, someone like Donald Trump, for example, and I'm just giving him as an example, he can say whatever he wants on social media, whether you agree with him or not. I'm not being party political here. I'm just saying that he can say whatever he wants. He can say things which seem very racist, very homophobic, very whatever, and he does not get taken off the platform. Whereas if I was to say something like that, I would be taken off the platform. And what's the difference? The difference is someone like Donald Trump has many, many followers and therefore attracts a lot of attention on the social media platforms and makes them a lot of money. So they don't want to get rid of him. Or other people that have got huge followings. And this is where there is an issue. This is where there is a real issue. Okay, so how do we increase watch time? How do these social media companies increase your viewing time? Well, they increase dopamine promoting activities. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain. It's released whenever you perform some action, which gives you some sort of satisfaction. You take a beer, you smoke a cigarette, you eat something nice, someone likes one of your comments on Twitter or Facebook, or shares or retweets. All of these things give you a little boost of this feel-good hormone in your brain. And that keeps you coming back to the device for more and more and more. Now, there's a word for this. If you keep seeking out the same dopamine-producing activities over and over and over again, many, many times in a day, that's called addiction. Addiction. And let's be no doubt about this, these devices are addictive. And most people think it's not the same. It's not the same as an addiction to some drug or something. It's perfectly innocent. But it takes up so much of your time. We've all been in a situation where we've just decided we're going to swipe up one more time, giving ourselves another little hit of dopamine. Before we know it, we've wasted 3 hours of a day on social media and we've done nothing. It's eaten up our time. And it's not just that it's eating up our time, it's also manipulating our behavior. And I don't just mean people trying to target ads and articles at us to manipulate our behavior. I mean, the algorithm itself, just by trying to keep us online, is manipulating our opinions. So, for example, let's take a simple example of how something like YouTube might end up making your opinions a bit more extreme than they might otherwise be. And I will use the anti-vaxxer movement once again as a good illustration of this. So you're a new mother. You're a new mother, so you've got a kid for the first time. What do? You join various mothers groups. Before you know it, it's time to give your children a vaccine. So you do your research. You go to YouTube and you type in vaccines, vaccine information, and you get some YouTube video appearing. And it's all about vaccines, and you watch it, and okay, that's interesting. You've learned a bit about vaccines. You're ready to give your child their vaccines. But the thing is, on YouTube, 70% of all the videos that people watch on YouTube are in the recommended videos feed at the side of the screen. You watch one video, and the YouTube algorithm, it looks at the topic and it thinks, this person likes this subject. I need to keep them engaged because that's how I make money. So I need to give them another video like this. But the thing is, remember what I said, the truth, the boring truth does not keep your attention. And the algorithm knows what keeps your attention. So maybe the next video that is recommended at the side of the YouTube screen might be something about the truth about vaccines. And that gets this woman's interest. She thinks, what do you mean the truth about vaccines? And it's something that talks about the pros and cons of vaccines. So she watches that. Now YouTube updates its algorithm. It knows basically that you like, you're now on the hook, so to speak. So it needs to push you a bit more extreme to keep your attention. So maybe the next video that is recommended has a title such as Vaccines and the Link with Autism. And you watch that and you're getting more scared, but you can't get your attention away because this is your child. You need to know everything about vaccines. You need to know the truth. Long story short, you've spent 3 or 4 hours on YouTube and you've been pushed into more and more of an extreme viewpoint. By the end of it, you're watching videos and they're being targeted at you that basically tell you that Big Pharma as is part of a big conspiracy to inject you with all these vaccines. They are poison, they are harmful. It's just to make the big pharma companies money, and you should under no circumstances give your children a vaccine. Next thing you know, you're an anti-vaxxer. Now, this is just one example of how something like YouTube with its recommended feeds, by stimulating your dopamine release and by getting you to watch ever more extreme videos and content, can basically push you to an extreme viewpoint. It can drag you down a rabbit hole. And there are all sorts of rabbit holes, and we've all been dragged down 1 or 2 of them. We have all been dragged down 1 or 2 of these rabbit holes. Anti-vaxxer movement is just one. Another might be, maybe you're just a moderate Muslim or a moderate Christian, and you watch some video or you start looking at posts on YouTube, on Facebook or Twitter about your religion. Now, if it's just boring, bland, your religion, it can get a bit boring after a while. So the algorithm needs to push more extreme content in your direction. And I'm not going to go through every step of this again because I think you're getting the idea by now. But you start off being shown things that are a little bit more radical. And then a little bit more radical again, and a little bit more radical again, because that grabs your attention, that keeps you on the device, that keeps you generating content for social media, allows the social media companies to make money. Before you know it, you might be watching videos or reading posts about jihadism or Christian fundamentalism or anything like that. Social media has taken society and it's pushed all of our beliefs to their extremes. It used to be that most people, politically, for example, were somewhere in the middle, centrist, maybe center-left, center-right, but somewhere in the middle, which meant we all had some kind of commonality. We could compromise with each other. We understood each other's opinions. We might not agree with them, but we understood them because they weren't a million miles away from ours. But social media has pushed the right ever more to the right by putting more and more extremist material into the bubbles, into their Twitter bubbles, their Facebook bubbles. And on the left, People have been pushed ever more to the left by pushing more and more extreme stuff into their Twitter bubbles, Facebook bubbles, YouTube feeds. We have all become more radicalized. We've all become more separate. If you're left-wing, then most of what appears in your bubble will be left-wing supporting material, very left-wing, and lots of anti-right-wing material. If you're a left-winger, then everything you see will promote your viewpoints to an extreme and will basically call the other side racists and bigots and stupid and all of this. If you're a right-wing, then the things that will be pushed your way will support right-wing policies, right-wing ideas, and push you more and more to the right, but at the same time will say every bad thing about the left. Will say that they are anarchists. It will say that they are lazy and they are this and they are that. The end result is we don't have that common ground anymore. We can't understand each other anymore because our opinions are becoming more and more radicalized. The end result is you have a society that starts to fracture. You see, old media, TV, that kind of thing, it used to hold a mirror to the world, a mirror to ourselves. It was a fuzzy mirror, it was a blurred mirror, but it was the same mirror for everyone. Now that mirror has shattered and we all are looking at a different piece of it. We see a reflection of our own opinions amplified. We don't see anyone else's. And that is the problem with social media, and it's getting worse. It is getting worse. So how do these social media companies increase advertising revenue? Well, they increase knowledge of users' interests. This allows for better ad targeting. They learn your habits, your interests, your locations, and other devices you're connected on. So locations, Google Maps. Google Maps is not free. Believe me, it is not free. Why would it be free? They're a company, they want to make money. They make money by gathering information about your location. If you're using Google Maps, then Google knows everywhere you go. It knows which bars you go to, which shops you go to. It knows who your friends are because you go to their homes. And your friend has got Google Maps too. So now there is a link between you and your friend on their database. They're gathering all this information about the demographics, your friends, the areas you associate in, all of these things. All of that information can increase advertising revenue and also be used to target political advertisements your way, or particular advertisements is a wrong word, to basically push fake news at you that will make you vote in a particular way, or make it more likely that you'll vote in a particular way. And you're being specifically targeted. So what are the business opportunities of the different organizations? Sorry, not opportunities, objectives. Well, YouTube, its main objective is to increase your watch time. Facebook wants you to increase the amount of data you share. Twitter also wants you to increase the amount of data you share. A lot of these social media companies, they just want to keep you on the device and get your data. Get your data, get your time, gather your information. So let's just think about something like WhatsApp for a second. WhatsApp is in a growth phase at the moment. They are growing, but they also have already a lot of information about us all. They know which numbers you've contacted. They know when, they know for how long, they know IP addresses of devices, your location, and your contact data. All that information is useful. So here's another quote from 2017. This is from Chamath Palihapitiya. It was the former Facebook Vice President for User Growth. So here we go, 2017. Short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. A lot of people that leave these social media companies say things like this. And he's right. Society used to be about consensus. It used to be about people putting their ideas out there and then finding compromises. Didn't always work well, but societies generally functioned, at least in the West, reasonably in that situation. But what social media has done is it's pushed us all to such extreme ends of every single debate. You are on this side or this side, and you are far apart. So far apart that consensus is difficult. Consensus is difficult. And we're seeing the effects of this. People are winning elections that would never have won an election 10 years ago. There are riots on streets. There's all sorts of trouble happening, which just wouldn't have happened before social media. Facebook actually made a response to this statement. Facebook was a very different company back then. As we have grown, we have realized our responsibilities have grown too. We take our role very seriously and we are working hard to improve. But are they? Are they really? You might say, oh, I've seen fact checkers now on social media. I've seen some fake news being taken down and accounts being blocked. Yes, you have. But you haven't seen much of it. You haven't seen much of it. Most of what's up there that is fake, that is used to manipulate you, does not get taken down. Now, some of these social media companies say, oh, it's just too difficult. It's too difficult to police everything. Anyone can put articles up there, and it's hard for us to check every single one. There are billions of these articles uploaded. Well, yes, it is, but there are other things you can do. For example, you could validate all accounts. No anonymous accounts anymore. Everyone has to have their account linked with a phone. That would get rid of so many bots, so many trolls. It would stop trolls from being so bold. And they could certainly stop selling data to political organizations and these these groups that want to basically just manipulate our behavior. And there's so many of them out there, And you've got to realize that if you can just push someone's vote ever so slightly, just by it, if you can influence an election by 1% or 2%, that can win or lose an election. And probably already has. I mean, what do things like dairy cows and social users have in common? Have a think about that for a second. Dairy cows and social users. Any ideas? They both follow the herd. That's another negative about social media. Social media tends to put everyone in little groups. You gather people with your think into your bubble, generally, with a few exceptions. And this, as well as polarizing all of our opinions, also puts us in a situation where we feel that we have to follow the herd. If you are left-wing, you have to believe A, B, C, D, E, F. If you are right-wing, you don't believe A, B, C, D, E, F, but you do believe G, H, I, J, K, L. And that is a problem. You're expected, and it is pushed at you in social media, that if you are in a particular group, vegetarian, atheist, Muslim, Christian, whatever it is, gay, straight, whatever it is, if you're in that group, you have to subscribe to a bunch of values, all of them. And if you do not, you will be in trouble. If you say something, then if you say something that does not agree with your group, with your bubble, then the Fort Police will find you. And they will find you and they will troll you. And you will be attacked by the Twitter mob. And not just that, in many cases, the Twitter mob will find information about you, they'll find where you work, and they will report you for saying something innocent, but that just doesn't fit a particular narrative. And in many cases, these companies will fire you from your job. They will do so because they are terrified of social media. They do not want to be accused of being bigoted or employing bigoted employees. Or I'm not saying that people that are racist should be employed in a particular company. I'm just saying that people that say something that doesn't fit in, that isn't quite politically correct, that isn't quite exactly what their group is supposed to think, they can lose their jobs because the companies are terrified of the Twitter mobs attacking them too, and the company losing revenue. That is one more problem with social media. Cancel culture. Cancel culture is a real thing. So social media and recruiting future users. More users equals more dollars. Competition for users is fierce, however. So children as young as 3 years old are targeted by these social media companies that know everything about you. For example, you could tweet something. The social media algorithms, they know what you tweeted, what you tweeted, who you are, what you tweeted, who you tweeted it to, but they also know where the tweets came from. These apps can work out the political affiliation or the viewpoints of people in a particular geographical area. So for example, maybe in one area of London, one area of Seattle, one area of Paris, by monitoring what's being tweeted in that area, what things are being liked and shared and retweeted and commented upon, and all these things, you can get a picture of the political viewpoints in that area. Are they generally left-wing, right-wing? Are they open for their votes to flip from one party to another? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they black? Are they white? Are they whatever it is? You can find out the demographic in an area by monitoring the social media, and then you can target fake news, propaganda basically, just to the people that you can influence the most, the swing voters, for example. And this is done all the time. All the time. Things like DMs can be monitored. So the messaging you're making to other people through the social media apps can be monitored. All of this is a real problem. And what can we do about it? What can we actually do about this problem? I mean, there are possible solutions. There are possible solutions. And by the way, I should just say that I'm sounding so negative about social media here. And some of you that maybe follow me on Twitter or subscribe to this podcast may think, Mark, bit of a hypocrite, aren't we? Bit of a hypocrite. You got 20,000 followers on Twitter. You've got a YouTube channel. You benefit from social media, yet you're saying it's negative. Why don't you get off social media then? Well, because social media does have benefits. Yes, I get to have conversations with people all over the world through my podcast and through Twitter. And I'm grateful for that. I am very grateful for that. And many of us get to make contacts and find information that we would have found almost impossible to gather just a few decades ago. Well, just 2 decades ago, really. But that is still an issue because the information isn't always accurate. I'd like to say the information I put on social media is accurate, but that isn't the case with many people. If you wanted to know something about law in the 1980s, what did you do? Well, you went to a library and you got a law book written by some law organization, the Law Society, for example. Wanted to know about chemistry, you got a textbook written by Oxford University Press. You wanted to know about biology, history, whatever it was, you would go to a library, you would be getting textbooks, they would be written by valid sources that check all of their facts. Now, however, if you want to know about law or biology or vaccines or anything else, you look on social media. You rely on social media, you rely on Google, you rely on YouTube. But the information that's being pushed to you is not being fact-checked. Most of it is not. It looks like it's fact-checked. Many times they have a logo at the top of the article that makes it look like, I don't know, BBC News or something. But it's just rubbish. We're being spoon-fed rubbish. We are being taught that 2 and 2 equals 5, and we're starting to believe it. That's the issue. That is the issue. Social media does have a good side. When I was at university the first time, I graduated in 2000. At university, I had many friends from around the world. And then I finished university and those friends went back to their home countries, at least many of them did. And I lost complete contact with them for several years. Then Facebook appeared, and now I know what they had for breakfast this morning. Because everything they do is on social media. Social media has allowed us to make connections, to share information, to grow businesses. It's brilliant in so many ways. But at the moment, as I said earlier, it's like the Wild West. It's just not regulated. It's not regulated. It's not fact-checked. And as a result, it is very, very dangerous. There are opportunities out there, but there's a lot of danger. And what is the solution to this? Well, I'm not saying that I have the solution. There have been a few proposed solutions. One solution that I've heard proposed is that perhaps a tiny fraction of our taxes should go to social media companies. We get to choose maybe once a year. I want this much of my, this tiny bit of my tax to go to Facebook, this tiny bit to go to Twitter, whatever social media apps you use, and it will probably be pennies. Pennies a month going to it. And in return, they cannot gather my data. They cannot sell my data. I cannot be a victim of any of these targeted ads or targeted campaigns. That's a possible solution. The social media companies still get their money, and we once again get our privacy. We get our privacy back. We are no longer having our data stolen. I don't know if that would work, and I know so many politicians would be against it, and so many politicians would be against it because they are benefiting from the current model. Donald Trump would have had a hard time becoming president without social media. So yes, that is a possible solution, but many politicians would be against it, but also many members of the public would be against it. They would say, why do I have to pay for the internet? The internet should be free. Why do I have to pay for social media? Social media should be free. But the thing they don't realize is they are paying for it. They're paying for it already with their freedom, We have given away our identities. We have given away our psychology. We have basically agreed when we sign the terms and conditions to Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, when we create an account, the subtext is we have agreed to be manipulated. To be manipulated in so many ways, an increasingly large number of ways. It's pushing society apart, and society might snap if it continues going this way. Something has to be done. Not 100% sure what it is, but at the very least, some sorts of regulations need to be imposed on Facebook and Twitter and the rest of them. Now, once again, some of you will say, I have seen them trying to improve. I have seen them. There was a fact check icon next to one of Donald Trump's tweets a few weeks ago. Yes, so it's just a little icon. Doesn't really mean much. More needs to be done. And most people don't get the fact check icon put next to them, and most of Donald Trump's tweets don't get that either. We need better regulations of the social media organizations, or we're going to find ourselves pretty soon, if we're not already there, in an Orwellian world, a world where our behavior is manipulated. Okay, with that said, I'm going to finish for today. If you want to support my podcast, then just go to scienceontheedge.com and click on the donations button. And that will take you to a Patreon page if you would like to support my podcast. At the moment, I'm doing this completely for free. I enjoy doing it. But it'd be great to get a little bit of support just to keep me motivated. So that's scienceontheedge.com, and then go to the donations page. Thank you very much for listening, and I will speak to you all again very soon. Goodbye.